The Yellow Turban Rebellion, also translated as the Yellow Scarves Rebellion, was a peasant revolt in China against the Han Dynasty. The uprising broke out in the year 184, during the reign of Emperor Ling. It took 21 years until the uprising was suppressed in the year 205. The rebellion, which got its name from the color of the cloths that the rebels wore on their heads, marked an important point in the history of Taoism, due to the rebels' association with secret Taoist societies. The revolt was also used as the opening event in the historical novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms. A major cause of the rebellion was an agrarian crisis, in which famine forced many farmers and former military settlers in the north to seek employment in the south, where large landowners exploited the labor surplus to amass large fortunes. The situation was further aggravated by smaller floods along the lower course of the Yellow River. The peasants were further oppressed by high taxes imposed in order to fund the construction of fortifications along the Silk Road and garrisons against foreign infiltration and invasion. In this situation, landowners, landless peasants, and unemployed former soldiers formed armed bands around 170, and eventually private armies, setting the stage for armed conflict. At the time, the Han central government was weakened internally. The power of the landowners had become a long-standing problem, but in the run-up to the rebellion, the court eunuchs, in particular, gained considerable influence over the emperor, which they abused to enrich themselves. 10 of the most powerful eunuchs formed a group known as the 10 Attendants, and Emperor Ling referred to one of them, Zhang Rang, as his foster father. The government was widely regarded as corrupt and incapable, and the famines and floods were seen as an indication that a decent emperor had lost his mandate of heaven. Because of its plan for a new beginning, the Taoist sect, the Zhangju, was to prove to be the Han Dynasty's great dangerous enemy. In preparation for revolt, Zhangju sent disciples out to gain support and organize the followers throughout North China. They were helped by local politicians, by local political discontents, and by drought and plague among the people. The rebels even had allies in the imperial court, and they were able to make their preparations while the government officials were either ignorant of their intentions or intimidated by their power. Zhangju planned an uprising throughout the empire, but before the call to arms had been issued, the plan was betrayed. The rebel sympathizers in Luoyang were arrested and executed, and the revolt in the provinces had to begin ahead of time, in the second month of 184. Despite the premature call and inevitable lack of coordination, tens of thousands of men rose in rebellion. Government offices were plundered and destroyed, and the imperial armies were immediately forced into the defensive. The rebellion was led by Zhangju, known to his followers as the General of Heaven, and his two younger brothers, Zhang Biao and Zhang Liang. The brothers had founded a Taoist religious sect. They were healers, usually accepting patients pro bono who could not afford to pay them. The brothers saw the harshness of the world through their work with the peasants, who were often abused by local government, overburdened and hungry due to the heavy taxes that had been levied upon them. The rebels were the first but not the last followers of the way of the supreme peace, and venerated the deity Huang Liao, who, according to Zhangju, had given him the secret book called Crucial Keys to the Way of Peace. Zhangju was said to be a sorcerer and styled himself as the great teacher. The sect taught that the principles of equal rights of all peoples and equal distribution of land. When the rebellion was proclaimed, the 16-word slogan was created by Zhangju. The 16-word slogan is, "The azure sky is already dead. The yellow sky will soon rise. When the year is Jiaji, there will be prosperity under heaven." The rebels were mostly concentrated in three areas. The group led by Zhangju and his two brothers gained their support in the region just north of the Yellow River, near Zhangju's home territory. The second major uprising took place in the neighborhood of present-day Beijing. The third center of rebellion was in the three commanderies of Ying, Chuang, Runan, and Yanyang. This force had evidently been intended to cooperate with the traders in Liaoyang in an attempt to seize the capital. But even without that support, the rebels in the region were a major threat. In February 185, the rebels were defeated, but only 2 months later the rebellion broke out again. In 185, it spread to Tihyang Mountains on the western border of Hebei, and in 186 it reached Shanji Hebai Liangye. The rebels were defeated in February 185, but only 2 months later the rebellion broke out again. In 192, the warlord Cao Cao was able to gain the submission of a rebel army after they marched into Yan province. The rebels eventually ceased to pose a military challenge in 205. The Han armies gained victory at high cost. Over wide areas, the offices of the government had been destroyed, magistrates had been killed, and whole districts were cut off from the writ of the central government. Rebel deaths numbered in the hundreds of thousands, while many non-combatants had been left homeless or destitute by the wars. The economy and society over great parts of much of the most populous region of the empire were left in ruins and without resources. Unrest remained and bandits appeared in every district. The government, in no position to put down all the lesser disturbances, was forced to patch up the situation as best it could. A long period of consolidation was needed to restore some measure of peace and prosperity, but that breathing space was not given. While the rebellion was eventually defeated, the military leaders and local administrators gained self-governing powers in the process. This hastened the collapse of the Han dynasty in 220. After Emperor Liang died in 189, a power struggle between He-Jin and the eunuchs ensued, in which He-Jin was assassinated on 22 September 189. He-Jin's chief ally, Yuan Zhao, retaliated by setting the palace on fire and slaughtering the eunuchs. Finally, the warlord Dong Zhuo was able to gain control over the underage heir to the throne, which he used as legitimization for occupying the capital, which was ransacked on the occasion. Because of his cruelty, Dong was murdered in 192, setting the stage for Cao Cao's rise to power. Despite the negativity portrayed in Lu Gaozao's historical novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms being a large-scale rebellion against a corrupt authority, several peasant uprisings in China were patterned after the Yellow Turban Rebellion, or claimed to be its spiritual successors.